In our last video, we talked about ultra-processed foods and how they may be linked with more depression and anxiety symptoms. Today, let's talk about the good stuff. What to eat to nourish your brain for steadier mood, better energy, and mental clarity. We'll start with key nutrients your brain loves, then I'll show you how to turn that into what I call a healthy diet you can actually live with. Let's look at nutrients your brain loves, starting at the top of the vitamin alphabet, as we currently understand them. Vitamin A supports brain and nervous system health. Hormones and immunity, or what I call your toxin response system. Top sources of that would be liver, cod liver oil, butter, egg yolks. Moving on to the B vitamins, B1, B3, B9, B6, and B12. These help your body make neurotransmitters, pretty important, produce energy, and respond to stress. Top sources of that would be meats and seafood, liver, eggs and dairy, leafy greens and vegetables, beans and properly prepared grains, nuts and seeds, raw oysters, and bananas. That's a pretty good list there. Okay, moving on to vitamin C, which supports antioxidant defenses and stress resilience. Top sources of that would be your fresh fruits and vegetables, plus ferments like sauerkraut. All right, next up would be vitamin D. Or is it actually a hormone? I don't know, but it's a nutrient that plays a role in mood and inflammation balance. Top sources would be cod liver oil, fatty fish, butter and lard, and egg yolks from pasture-raised hen, and also sensible sun exposure. Okay, the next one, we're moving into the non-letter nutrients, omega-3 fats. Your EPA and your DHA. These are structural fats for the brain that may help balance inflammation. Top sources would be seafood, especially fatty fish, and cod liver oil. Also grass-fed animal foods. Okay, you may be surprised by this next one. Cholesterol. Yes, it's a nutrient that our brain needs for hormones and nerve support. Top sources, animal foods. Are you noticing a trend here? Especially egg yolks, animal fats, and organ meats. All right, the last one in my list is glycine. This comes from gelatin and collagen. It's a calming amino acid that supports sleep and gut lining integrity. Top sources would be gelatin-rich bone broth or meat stock, and also slow-cooked cuts of meat that include connective tissue. All right, here's a side note that not all broths are the same. Bone broth is long simmered and mineral rich, but that long cook can increase free glutamic acid. And some people with sensitive digestive systems don't feel so great with that. So if you have ever tried bone broth and found you didn't respond well to it, there is another option called meat stock. It has a shorter cook time with more meaty connective tissue bones, and it tends to be richer in gelatin and is often gentler for sensitive digestion. I'll share more on the gut-brain connection in an upcoming video. So did you notice a pattern as we went through all those nutrients? It sounds like what I call a healthy diet. I realize a lot of these foods aren't common in our modern diets, and some are true acquired tastes. That's okay, but they're worth adding little by little for better mental and physical health. You can start by looking for a ground beef blend that includes liver, a small percentage, so that you get the benefit without the strong flavor. And try that for one meal a week. Or try adding one fish or seafood meal each week. And stay tuned here as I will have future videos on how to make and include things like sauerkraut and meat stock. So some basic principles would be to include animal foods from well-raised animals, like those organ meats, eggs, butter, raw dairy, shellfish, and seafood. And we can enjoy those traditional saturated fats. And as I mentioned last week, want to avoid those industrial seed oils as much as possible. We want to cook most plant foods and eat some animal foods raw. And embrace lacto-fermented condiments like sauerkraut and beverages like kombucha. We need to relearn how to prepare grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds properly. by soaking, souring, and fermenting for better digestibility and bioavailability. And finally, we can bring in more balance of those omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids by eating both land and sea animal foods. And like we saw in the last video with ultra-processed foods, there are some studies indicated that vegans and vegetarians tend to suffer more depression and anxiety than those who include meat and other animal products in their diets. I've heard many stories of folks who feel better adding in some animal foods after struggling on a plant-only diet. I think this is often due to these harder to get nutrients like B12, iron, zinc, iodine, and those DHA and EPA, those omega-3 fats. However, I do not recommend any long-term approaches that eliminate entire food groups for most people. We benefit from nutrients in fruits and vegetables as well as animal foods. We want to aim for a balanced, nutrient-dense plate that we can sustain. And if you're thinking, great, but how do I afford this? I've got you. I did a video series with ideas for eating healthy on a budget that shows exactly what I mean by eating healthy and how to do it simply and affordably. I'll link that down in the description. And you can start with just 1 or 2 upgrades each week. Here's a couple simple meal ideas. For breakfast, it's super simple. Just some eggs cooked in butter with some sauteed greens. Or you can try a grab-and-go egg muffin recipe. For dinner, I have a favorite, super versatile recipe called Italian casserole for a simple meat and vegetable meal that also makes meat stock at the same time. Or something like a roasted chicken and veggies. It does not have to be complicated. Okay, so I say this in almost every video. Stewardship is not about perfection. We want to be faithful with what God has provided as we grow in our stewardship. So choose one step this week. Add a seafood meal, make a pot of meat stock, or swap a packaged snack for fruit and nuts like we talked about in the last video. And you can still grab my free Culprits on Your Labels guide. I'll put that link down below. And if you missed part 1 on ultra-processed foods and your mental health, you can watch that next. And keep an eye out for my upcoming video on the gut-brain connection and how healing your gut can lead to better mental health. So here's a question for you. What nutrient-dense meal are you excited to try this week? Share it below, and your idea could encourage someone else. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you in the next video.